Thank you.
I want to say, speaking of drum loops, there's somebody here, I think was doing drum loops back in the 60s, Jeff Emmerich.
Oh, well, yeah, I have to give, I forgot, I mean, you know, fairness, of course, Mr. Emmerich, of course. I think that's probably where we came up with the idea. It's like, well, yeah, how did he do all that crazy stuff? And,
once again, a little bit maybe about doing duets, Sinatra duets. You gotta have some good stories about that.
Yeah, any particularly good stories about Sinatra duets? And you were kind enough to share with us one of the studio charts of that, actually, that we've got up in the museum, which is one of my favorite things I point out to people every time. Say, look at that, and they're looking through it, and it's, you know, if people aren't quite experienced in the studio, they're trying to figure out what it is, and then they always lay upon right in the middle, it just says Frank. Yeah. In the middle of all these X's and Mike things, Frank is just right there in the middle of this Capitol Studios chart.
We had, Capitol had built this beautiful ISO booth with gobos and all, and even had air conditioning in it. And then we had a little tray with Camels, and he loved Tootsie Rolls and Jack Daniels. So the first day, we rehearsed with the band. We had 55 musicians. We rehearsed with the band. And then he came in that night. No, first day he didn't show up at all. The next night he came in, and he started to sing. He lasted about 3 minutes, and he said, "Not tonight, guys," and he left. Then the next night he came in, and this is the night we got all the stuff. But he wouldn't go in the booth. He said, "I'm not going in there. I can't sing in there." Okay, fine. He wanted a handheld mic, so we gave him a handheld mic, a wireless handheld mic. And then he stood right in front of the brass section. And if you know some of those arrangements, that band was smoking. And,
oh, man.
And we had to deal with it. But I remember, you know, everybody being so nervous and you know, worried whether he was going to be able to pull it off. And his manager was there, and Phil Ramone, who I loved. But he started to sing, and it just clicked. And the band would be trailing off. And he'd say, before it was over, he'd say, "Okay, what are we doing next?" And then he would pick another tune. And it just went on. And we did, the only time he stopped and started again was if the tempo wasn't right for him, then he would stop it and start again. But it was one take all the way through. You had to be ready instantly. There was no, and he wasn't, you weren't going to mess with Frank at that point. But it was just an amazing time. I went to dinner with him 3 times while we were doing that, and there were, it was Phil and his manager and Pat Williams and Frank and me and a mafia don by the name of Louis Dome. And they told stories. I wish I'd had a tape recorder. It was, Louis came in and sat at the table with us, and his 2 henchmen came in and sat at another table facing the door. It was incredible. But they told one story about, they were talking about this guy Beansy, and he was a soldier in the mafia, and he had a reputation of being able to steal the hubcaps off a car while it was still moving. And they told stories about how he would steal things. He stole a fur coat for Barbara, Frank's wife, and Frank said to him, "What's that?" He said, "Well, she admired it." He said, "You bought that?" He said, "No, I didn't buy it, Frank." He said, "Put it back." So he had to put it back. Same thing with a painting with Louis Dome. Louis Dome admired a painting. They get to the restaurant. Beansy said, "I'll be back in a little while." He leaves. 20 minutes later, he comes back with the painting. Louis made him put it back, so he had this reputation of being able to steal something and then put it back without getting caught. It was amazing, the stories that he told about the Rat Pack and those guys. What a life they had. they all carried their passports at all times because they never knew when they were going to decide to rent a plane and fly to Tokyo to see somebody who was opening in some. It was an amazing time. We had extra microphones warming up around the outside of the studio. In case the mic went out, we could change it quick. And one kid came in and said, "Hey, he talked to me. Mr. S talked to me." He said, "Yeah, what did he say?" He said, "You, get the fuck out of my way."
That's great.
We got
It was a great experience. 3 weeks before that, I did an interview for Mix Magazine or EQ or something, and the guy said, "Do you have any regrets in your career?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I never got a chance to work with Frank Sinatra. I used to play hooky from school in Brooklyn and go over to the Paramount Theater to see him. He was the man, even way back then." And I said, "Yeah, I never got to work with him." About 3 weeks later, I get a call, and it's Phil. He said, "Are you available so-and-so and so-and-so?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Good, put it down." I said, "Okay, great. Who's the artist?" He said, "Frank Sinatra." So it was like my dream came true. You know?
Amazing thing. Wow. We have another question out there. Right here in the front there. Here in the stripes. Yeah.
Actually, I'm studying audio recording. Actually, we are all studying audio recording right now. And do you have like any advices for new engineers for today?
Any pieces of advice for upcoming engineers or young engineers just getting started?
Well, first of all, you know, if you don't have a passion for this and something really deep inside that you want to do it, I advise you to do something else, because only the guys that really have a passion for it make it, you know. So that also study with, you know, I don't know, are you working at a studio or are you on your own?
We're in a college, college. And we are studying audio recording right now.
Uh-huh.
In school, yeah.
You're in college?
Make sure you get your diploma. That's really important. Because now, you know, I mean, they're graduating so many guys from these schools, and maybe 1 in 100 is going to make it in the business, you know. So it's always good to have something to fall back on, a good education. You know, trust your ears. That's what I do.
I would say listen to some of the best records out there,
Yeah.
starting from way back, and why they're still able to, you know, be considered classics. You know,
Yeah,
what
exactly.
what makes a classic, you know? And I would say just listen to everything you can get your hands on.
Ask Jeff Emery.
Another question out there? Back here in the...
He's too big.
Oh, is that Daniel?
Yeah.
Hi, Daniel.
I'm Daniel. I have about 2.5 hours of questions for you. Narrow it down to a couple of things that are happening here. For drum sounds, I was wondering what kind of mics, attack times, what kind of compressors you favor for different instruments are you? Because the sound that you get on the total album is so amazing, punchy, but natural. Do you do a lot of, do you mute the tom tracks when they're not being hit? Do you do a lot of filtering on the overheads? And on vocal sounds, I was wondering about the clarity. Do you get vocal sounds? Reverbs, vocal mics are favorite cues to get that clarity of presence that you use, like Apex, or what kind of things you do to bring it out above the track without getting loud?
We'll break it down into two. I think the first one is really drum sounds in
Drum
general.
sounds, well, you know, it's a matter of what mic you use, the way you put them. I don't compress my drums at all, and I don't EQ. So I do it all with microphones.
I think that's a pretty radical answer.
Yeah, it's all with microphones. So, you know, sometimes, you know, we were talking about that earlier. Sometimes moving a mic an inch can make the difference. You got to find the right spot, and you got to listen to what the instrument sounds like, so you can capture that sound.
I have to tell you that Al, who came to my studio in Maui, when he came over, I said, I'm going to learn something today, because Al is going to be here, and I'm going to study everything he does, because there's something he's doing. He's got a secret, and I'm going to learn it while he's in my studio. I'm going to check every setting, everything he does. I'm going to write that down. Write that down. I told him. You didn't touch none of that stuff. That was amazing, boy. So take what he just told you is probably the biggest lesson you're going to ever learn. That it doesn't have to be all of that. Remember, in the days years ago, they were recording symphony orchestras on mono. There was no stereo even in those days. So what he's saying is big. I can attest to it. And I'm still studying his techniques if I can find one that I can use. So it was a good question you asked, my friend.
Yeah. On vocal mics, too, you know, you got to listen to the vocalist and then try to match a mic that works with them, that fits with them. But that comes usually from experience and knowing your microphones. So try things, you know, don't be afraid to try a mic, and if that doesn't work, put up something else, you know, or put up a couple and switch back and forth till you find something that works.